Welcome to IPAF's safety trail here at the Lift Safety Zone in CONEXPO, Las Vegas.
Aerial work platforms require that the ground underneath them is adequate to support the load of these machines. We have large machines and small machines, and you must ensure that whatever the ground conditions underneath these machines are capable of holding the load. In addition to it, we end up having potential areas of concern, known hazards that must be identified and precautions taken as necessary to mitigate any of the risk for those who are in the work area, including the operator of the equipment. You end up having unlevel ground conditions, and there are various types of soils that can also become an impediment to safe use. There can be items such as a muddy area that when you see the water in front of you, you don't know how deep it is. What is the unlevel condition that could be in place that could actually cause an unstable condition for the aerial work platform? Sandy conditions and vaults and manhole covers really can become an area that are not capable of sustaining the load of some of the more heavy equipment that can drive across those. So it's incumbent upon anyone in the safe use evaluation through risk assessments to identify these conditions and take the appropriate actions to avoid these conditions that could put the machine and operator at risk.
It's essential that users and operators do a risk assessment before starting the work to identify hazards that may cause a crushing problem. And the operators need to be trained and aware of all the hazards so they know when they move the controls they can keep clear and avoid the hazards and prevent the problem of crushing. One of the common problems on the job site is unauthorized use of machines. People come along and they borrow them because the key is it can fit many machines. So IPAF has now got a smart chip card which you can put to a reader which will only allow trained operators to use the machine. I've got the device here just for this purpose of this film, but normally the reader will be on the inside of the controllers, this is in a normal place. So if you want to prevent unauthorized use, use a PAL card with the chip and a reader. Operators using aerial work platforms and working close to overhead cables is a big issue in the US of A, and it is essential that users and managers and operators do risk assessments to identify overhead cables to put in measures to avoid working too closely to them.
To start any job, the most critical element before you begin is performing a risk assessment on the job. That risk assessment includes any use of an aerial work platform, from a very large project to something as basic as aerial operator training. Anytime that an operator is going to get into the equipment, you must perform a risk assessment. Users must ensure that before the job begins, they identify the test that is to be performed, and then recognize any potential hazards in the workplace and develop method statements to mitigate or eliminate the risk. Those include all of the elements that we've been talking about in today's presentation, about the key elements, the basics about known hazards and how to prevent them. In addition to that, you need to make sure that the operators are aware of what those particular hazards on the site are and how they can prevent them in the operation of the equipment. Further, the operator must on a daily basis do a workplace inspection to identify any new hazards that may arise during the course and change of a project. One of the very important elements of safe use of aerial work platforms is a daily pre-start inspection. Users must ensure that their operators complete an inspection every day on the equipment to make sure that it is functioning properly. It begins with first a visual inspection of the machine to make sure that everything looks in place and is in order, and then followed up with that, it requires a function test, which is from both the controls on the platform and those on the ground. So you must go around the machine in a very sequential order and ensure that everything is functioning properly before you begin the operation of the equipment. Aerial work platforms are the safest means to put people at height doing temporary work. So what you need to do to make sure that that takes place is you need to make sure that you have a trained and familiarized operator. You must do a proper risk assessment and select the right equipment for that operator to utilize. you need to identify in that risk assessment all the potential hazards that may be on the job site and make sure that you put in method statements to mitigate those risks so that everyone can be professionally using this equipment and avoiding any potential hazards that will take place on any job site. So please pay attention to all of the elements that we brought to you today and be safe.